The judge leaned back, amused. Representing yourself? His voice laced with disbelief. Well, this should be entertaining. A few chuckles broke out across the courtroom. From the prosecutor, from the bailiff, even from the stenographer. But the man at the defense table didn't laugh. He stood still, back straight, hands resting calmly on the table in front of him. His name was Jordan Ellis, 38 years old, no law degree, no legal team, no fancy suit, just a worn blazer, a leather folder, and a quiet fire in his eyes. Across the aisle sat the opposition, Clinton Ward, lead attorney for First Dominion Bank. Polished, confident, expensive. He didn't look at Jordan as an equal. Didn't look at him as a threat. Just another eviction case. Just another poor black man too stubborn or too foolish to hire a lawyer. The judge, Randall Renner, flipped open the file in front of him. He skimmed through the documents, barely masking the boredom in his face. "Let's make this quick," he said. "I've got a fundraiser tonight." Jordan didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't smile. He simply stepped forward, opened his folder, and pulled out a stack of papers, then spoke, calm, measured. "Before we begin, Your Honor, I'd like to submit a motion to dismiss the bank's foreclosure claim on the basis of procedural fraud and improper notarization." The room fell silent. The bailiff stopped mid-sip of his coffee. Ward blinked, thrown off. Even the judge paused. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" Jordan repeated, slower this time. "The bank's standing to foreclose is invalid. Their second mortgage document," he held up a copy, marked in red, "was fraudulently notarized and legally unenforceable." He walked to the evidence table, placed the papers down, then returned to his spot. Still calm, still silent, like a man who had done this 100 times before. But he hadn't. This was his first time in court, his first real legal battle. And it was for everything: his house, his name, his mother's legacy. The judge narrowed his eyes. Ward leaned forward, suddenly less amused. Because in just 60 seconds, Jordan had flipped the energy in the room. He wasn't flailing. He wasn't desperate. He was dangerous. And as the crowd leaned in, sensing something big was about to unfold, no one could have guessed. This man, who walked in alone, was about to pull off the most unexpected courtroom upset the city had ever seen. 6 months earlier, Jordan Ellis stood on the front porch of his childhood home. The wooden steps creaked beneath his feet, paint chipped from the handrails. But the house still stood strong, a quiet monument to 3 generations of black resilience. In his hand, he held a piece of paper, thick red letters stamped across the top. Final notice. Property to be vacated in 14 days. Jordan stared at it, not moving, not blinking, his throat clenched. This wasn't just a house. It was his mother's life work. Denise Ellis had been a school janitor for over 25 years. She raised Jordan on a single paycheck and faith, scrubbing floors by day, studying mortgage paperwork by night. She celebrated the day she burned the final mortgage bill with a small cookout on that same porch. He remembered her laughing, dancing barefoot in the grass. "We own it, baby. Nobody can take this from us now." And yet, here it was. A legal document, signed, stamped, saying she was wrong. Jordan rushed inside, ripped open the old filing cabinet in the corner of the living room, pulled out folders, receipts, tax forms, the deed itself. Every paper she had kept. Every step she'd taken to protect the home, until he found it. A document he'd never seen before, labeled Second Mortgage Agreement, dated 2 years ago. Denise's name signed at the bottom. But the signature was off. The loops were wrong, the slant unfamiliar. The D didn't match the way she'd always signed her checks. Jordan knew his mother's handwriting like his own heartbeat, and this wasn't hers. He called First Dominion Bank, waited on hold for 42 minutes. Finally, a voice answered. "Foreclosure department, how can I help you?" Jordan explained. Explained again. Asked questions. "Sir," the woman on the other end said flatly, "the account is in default due to non-payment on a second mortgage. The foreclosure is final. My mother never took out a second mortgage. Then maybe she didn't tell you everything." Jordan gripped the phone tighter. That voice, dismissive, detached, like his history didn't matter. Like his mother's years of struggle were just clerical noise. He hung up, eyes burning. The next day, he went to the bank in person. Met with a man named Darren Klein, branch manager, mid-40s, thin smile, thick arrogance. Klein barely looked at the documents, just shrugged. "These things happen," he said. "People get desperate. They sign things they don't understand." Jordan leaned forward. "That's not what happened." "Then prove it," Klein replied. "But I'd act fast." Clock's ticking. Jordan walked out of that bank with a storm in his chest. No lawyer, no allies, no plan, but one unshakable thought. They were stealing his mother's home, and they thought he wouldn't fight back. The courthouse was colder than Jordan expected. Not the temperature, the atmosphere. People didn't look at him. They looked through him. Security barely glanced at his ID. Clerks spoke to him like he didn't understand English. He waited in line for nearly an hour just to file a motion. A stay of eviction, handwritten, carefully checked. He had spent all night studying court templates, copying the format exactly. When he finally reached the filing window, the clerk, a middle-aged white woman with tired eyes, raised an eyebrow. "Are you representing yourself?" Jordan nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She didn't respond, just sighed. "You know these cases rarely end well for people who try that." Jordan slid the papers across. "I don't have a choice." The clerk stamped the top page, then mumbled, "Good luck," like it was already over. That night, Jordan sat in the empty community center where he worked part-time. He cleaned the floor with a mop that had lost half its bristles. Wiped tables no one would sit at again until next week. In the silence, his frustration boiled. He had done everything right. Worked hard, paid taxes, stayed out of trouble. And now, the system had come to take the one thing that mattered most. Based on a forged signature and a smile from a man in a suit. One of the center's elder volunteers, Miss Thelma, noticed his tension. She walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. "You look like the whole world's on your back, baby." Jordan chuckled bitterly. "Feels like it too." She leaned on the mop handle. "Let me guess. Someone in power said you were wrong." He looked up. She knew. He told her everything. The bank, the fake signature, the judge who dismissed his motion like it was a joke. Miss Thelma didn't blink, just nodded slowly. "Then you write again." Jordan frowned. "They won't listen." She smiled, a tired, knowing smile. "Oh, baby. They never listened the first time." Something in those words struck deep. He stayed at the center hours after closing, printed statutes, reviewed case law, watched recorded hearings online until his eyes burned. He called legal aid. No help. Tried pro bono lawyers. All booked. Even the local councilman, who had shaken his hand at a neighborhood rally, brushed him off. "These things happen," the man said. "Maybe find alternative housing." Alternative housing, as if homes were interchangeable, as if history could be boxed up and moved. Jordan walked out of that office with one resolve. If no one else would fight for this house, he'd do it himself. He came home to find strangers on the porch. Two men in work gloves, a sheriff's deputy leaning against his cruiser. "You Malcolm Ellis?" The deputy didn't even look up from his clipboard. "It's Jordan," he muttered. "What's going on?" "Eviction order. Effective immediately." Jordan's stomach dropped. He'd filed the motion. He had papers. He was waiting for a court date. "You can't do this. Sir, step aside." The movers pushed past him. One carried his mother's rocking chair. The other tossed family albums into a cardboard box. The house that had held his childhood, his mother's final breath, his only anchor, was now just another line on a foreclosure report. An hour later, everything he owned sat on the curb. Clothes in trash bags, a broken lamp, his mother's Bible. Jordan didn't cry, he didn't yell. He just sat on the front steps, watching a piece of his history get dragged across the lawn like garbage. His phone buzzed. It was Raya, the woman who had helped him scan documents at the library. He didn't answer. What could he say? That it was over? That they won? He spent that night in his car. Engine off, coat zipped to his chin, fighting sleep, fighting cold, fighting the thought that maybe the clerk was right. These cases don't usually end well. The next morning, he went to buy breakfast, but his debit card declined. He checked his banking app. Account frozen, suspected fraudulent activity. Frozen. No gas, no food, no motel. He called the fraud department. "You'll need to file a dispute," they said, but the voice on the other end. He recognized it. "Darren Klein, didn't expect to hear from you again," Klein said, voice thick with smugness. "You froze my account. You're flagged as high risk, Mr. Ellis." Jordan clenched his jaw. They weren't just trying to take his house. They were trying to erase him. No home, no money, no legal standing. And soon, no case. Because if he couldn't pay to stay alive, he'd never survive long enough to reach the next hearing. But he still had one thing. His folder. Taped shut, dog-eared, stained from coffee and rain. Inside were copies of everything. Loan documents, signature comparisons, property records. His entire fight, on paper. That night, he found a 24-hour laundromat, slumped into a plastic chair near the dryers, and read the file again, cover to cover, until between 2 pages, he found something. A clause, a mistake, one that might just change everything. It was buried on page 9, a line so ordinary, so technical, it barely looked important. Endorsement of note must be completed by authorized officer prior to transfer of title. Most people would have skipped it, even some lawyers. But Jordan didn't skip. He circled it, underlined it, read it 3 more times. The second mortgage, the one they claimed gave them power to foreclose, had changed hands 3 times. But the final transfer, missing an endorsement. Without it, the bank had no legal standing. No authority to take the house. No right to evict anyone. It was a legal landmine, and they stepped right on it. Jordan didn't wait. He filed a new motion, challenging the foreclosure based on lack of legal standing. This time, he didn't just submit papers. He included exhibits, highlighted statutes, requested a review of every signature. When he delivered the motion to the clerk, she actually paused, raised an eyebrow, looked at the documents a second longer than usual, then stamped them. "You've been doing your homework." 2 days later, he got the call. Judge Renner wanted an emergency hearing, in person. That same afternoon, Jordan returned to the downtown library. He needed to scan his files again, this time with notes attached. That's when he ran into Linda Browning, a law student doing volunteer hours with the Justice Collective, a civil rights group known for fighting predatory foreclosures. Linda had seen him around, always quiet, always reading. That day, she stopped him. "You've been here every night this week," she said. "Studying foreclosure law?" Jordan nodded. "They took my house. I'm trying to take it back." She hesitated, then motioned to his folder. "Can I see?" He handed it over. For the next hour, they sat together under buzzing fluorescent lights. Page after page Linda read. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "You're right," she whispered. They screwed up the title chain. This transfer's invalid. Jordan exhaled, relief, but also validation. Do you work with anyone who can help me file this properly? Linda hesitated, then reached into her bag, pulled out a card. Come by the office tomorrow. I'll get you in front of someone who'll listen. Jordan took the card, looked at it. The Justice Collective. He smiled, a real smile for the first time in weeks. Not because the fight was over, but because now he wasn't fighting alone. The courthouse lobby buzzed with quiet tension. Reporters, community organizers, even a few curious law students. Word had spread. The man who represented himself, who refused to be broken, was back. Jordan walked in alone, but he wasn't invisible anymore. Behind him came Linda, carrying a red binder marked Exhibits AF. To his left was Terrence Boyd, a civil rights attorney from the Justice Collective. To his right was Denise Fowler, the notary whose name had been forged on the second mortgage. Judge Renner entered the courtroom, robe flowing, face tight. He glanced at the gallery, clearly irritated by the press, then banged the gavel. This court is now in session. Across the aisle, Clinton Ward sat with his legal team, still confident, but less smug than before. His hands tapped nervously against his folder. We're here to address the emergency motion filed by Mr. Jordan Ellis, the judge began, regarding alleged fraud in the bank's foreclosure action. Jordan stood. No suit, no briefcase, just his folder. Your Honor, I'd like to enter sworn testimony from Miss Fowler, he said, confirming she never notarized the document the bank used to foreclose. Judge Renner raised an eyebrow. Miss Fowler, do you understand the seriousness of your statement? Denise stood. Her voice was shaky at first, but as she spoke, strength returned. Yes, Your Honor. I was asked to notarize a blank form. I never saw Ms. Ellis sign it. I was told it was protocol. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Judge Renner's face tightened. Jordan stepped forward again. Your Honor, I'd also like to present documentation showing the second mortgage was transferred improperly. No endorsement. No recorded approval. He placed the papers on the table, each page tabbed and highlighted. Ward objected. Your Honor, this is a procedural issue, not grounds for dismissal. Jordan turned, eyes sharp. Then why hasn't the bank produced the original note? Silence. Ward didn't answer. Neither did his associate. Judge Renner looked down at the documents, then back at Ward. Mr. Ward, where is the original note? We're working on locating it. Jordan didn't smile, didn't celebrate, but the tension in the room had shifted. The balance had tilted, and for the first time, the court wasn't sure which side to believe. Judge Renner banged his gavel again. This court will recess for 15 minutes. Counsel, be ready to explain this mess. As the gallery stirred, Jordan stepped back to the defense table. Linda leaned in, whispering, "You just made them bleed." But Jordan knew. Bleeding wasn't the same as surrender. They'd come back harder, and the real fight was just beginning. The recess ended, but the mood had changed. No more smirks from the bank's legal team. No more sighs from the judge. Just silence, thick and waiting. Judge Renner adjusted his glasses. Mr. Ellis, he said, you have the floor. Jordan stood slowly, took a breath, held up a flash drive. Your Honor, this is the final piece. He handed it to the clerk, who inserted it into the courtroom screen. The monitor flickered, then played a grainy video, captured from a phone, shaky but clear. Inside a sleek boardroom, a man in a suit leaned forward. We push these second mortgages through. Fast. Don't wait for signatures. If they contest it, we stall them until the house is gone. Another voice added, most of them won't fight back, especially the old ones. Especially folks like that. Someone in the gallery gasped. A woman covered her mouth. Jordan turned to Judge Renner. That video came from a whistleblower inside First Dominion Bank. They were sent protocols, internal scripts, on how to push through illegal foreclosures before homeowners could respond. Clinton Ward shot to his feet. Objection. This was obtained without proper authorization. Terrence Boyd stood calmly. Your Honor, the whistleblower is protected under the state ethics code, and the recording falls under public interest exemption. Judge Renner said nothing. He just watched the screen. The video continued. This case in Eastwood? We don't even have the original mortgage. But the guy's a nobody. Can't afford a lawyer, just run it. That was Jordan's case. Spoken like it was just a line item on a spreadsheet. When the footage ended, the silence was louder than any shout. No one moved, not even the judge. Then finally, Renner leaned back, spoke quietly. Mr. Ward, do you wish to respond? Ward's face had drained of color. He stammered. Your Honor, I was unaware of this protocol. It doesn't reflect our official. Save it. Renner's voice was firm now, stronger. He turned to Jordan. Mr. Ellis, based on the evidence presented, this court orders a full audit of First Dominion's foreclosure process. The gavel slammed once, hard, effective immediately. Case adjourned. Jordan stood frozen. It was done. Not won, but no longer lost. He exhaled, and this time he allowed himself to smile. Linda grinned beside him. Boyd clapped him on the back. Denise Fowler wiped her eyes. And across the gallery, 3 reporters were already texting their editors. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a headline. 1 week later, Jordan stood in front of the house that nearly disappeared from his life. Same peeling paint, same cracked porch, same wind chimes his mother hung the year she paid off the mortgage. But something was different now. In his hand, a stamped copy of the original deed. Reinstated, validated, untouchable. Across the street, a reporter adjusted her camera lens. Mr. Ellis, just one quote. What does this moment mean to you? Jordan didn't pose, didn't grandstand. He just looked at the front door, then spoke softly. It means my mother was right. This house was never just property. It was proof that we belong here. Back at the Justice Collective office, the phones were ringing non-stop. Emails flooded in from across the country. Homeowners with similar stories. Some were already being evicted. Some had never questioned the signatures, but now they were asking questions. And now they had someone to turn to. Linda Browning became the lead researcher on foreclosure fraud cases. Denise Fowler went public with her story, her face on national news. Jordan, he joined the team, not as a client, as an advocate. He spent his days reviewing cases, helping others file motions, teaching people how to defend what they own. When a journalist asked why he wasn't suing for damages, he smiled. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about making sure no one else goes through what I did. The fallout for First Dominion Bank was swift. State investigators launched inquiries. Shareholders pulled out. Executives resigned. Clinton Ward, suspended from the bar pending investigation. Even Judge Renner came under review because justice delayed had once again almost been justice denied. But thanks to one man who refused to be silent, the silence broke. And as for Jordan, one afternoon, months later, he sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood kids race bikes down the street, listening to the creak of the rocking chair. His mother's chair, still here, still standing, not because the system helped him, but because he forced the system to look, and not look away. Justice isn't something you find, it's something you build. One stand, one truth, one voice at a time. If this story moved you, if you believe every voice deserves to be heard, and every home deserves to be protected, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because here at KaYi, we don't just tell stories, we tell truths that demand to be seen. Until next time, stay loud, stay bold, stay human.